Imagine you're 7 years old. You're freezing cold. Your mom can barely afford food. And right in front of you is more money than you've ever seen in your life. 5,000 pounds. Just sitting there. No one's looking. What would you do? This little boy made a choice that day. And 10 years later, it made him a billionaire. But not in the way you think. Let me tell you a story. A story about a man who had everything but felt like he had nothing at all. His name was William Grant, and he was 75 years old. William lived in a massive estate on the outskirts of London, surrounded by walls so high you couldn't see the sky from the street. Inside those walls, he had marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and rooms filled with paintings worth millions. He owned factories, real estate companies, and investment firms across Europe. On paper, William Grant was one of the richest men in England, but if you looked into his eyes, you'd see something else entirely. You'd see emptiness. William didn't trust anyone. Not anymore. Over the years, life had taught him a cruel lesson. People only wanted him for his money. His own children barely called him unless they needed something. A new car, a vacation home in Spain, money to cover their debts. When they visited, they didn't ask how he was feeling. They asked about his will. His business partners smiled at him during meetings, but he knew they were waiting for him to die so they could take over his companies. Even his household staff had betrayed him. Silver candlesticks had gone missing. Cash disappeared from his desk. Expensive bottles of wine vanished from his cellar. So William had built walls, not just around his estate, but around his heart. He stopped believing in goodness. He stopped believing that anyone could do something kind without expecting something in return. And so he created a game, a test. Every few months, William would pretend to fall asleep in his study. He'd slump in his favorite leather chair, close his eyes, and slow his breathing. To anyone watching, he looked like a harmless old man taking an afternoon nap. But underneath those closed eyelids, William was wide awake, watching, waiting, testing. Today was one of those days. Outside, the London rain poured down hard, drumming against the tall windows like 1,000 tiny fingers. Inside William's study, a fire crackled in the stone fireplace, filling the room with warmth. Everything was peaceful. Everything was perfect. On the small oak table next to William's chair, he had placed an envelope. It was open, and inside was a thick stack of 50-pound notes. 5,000 pounds in total. Enough money to change someone's life. The bills were spilling out of the envelope carelessly, as if an old, forgetful man had left them there by accident. William settled into his chair, closed his eyes, and waited. He had done this test dozens of times before. Every single time someone had failed, the gardener had taken 200 pounds. A delivery man had slipped 3 bills into his pocket. A temporary nurse had stolen the whole envelope and quit the next day. Each time someone stole from him, William felt a dark satisfaction. See, he would think, I was right. Everyone is a thief. Everyone has a price. Today, he was testing his newest housekeeper. Her name was Elizabeth Moore, though everyone called her Lizzie. She had only been working at the Grant estate for 3 weeks. William knew almost nothing about her except what the employment agency had told him. She was a widow, she had a young child, and she desperately needed the job. William heard the heavy door of his study creak open. Soft footsteps entered the room. But then he heard something unexpected. A second set of footsteps. Lighter, smaller. A child. William's interest sharpened. What was a child doing in his house? Stay right here, Jamie, Lizzie whispered, her voice tight with anxiety. Sit on that rug by the bookshelf. Don't move. Don't touch anything. And please, sweetheart, don't make a sound. Mr. Grant is sleeping, and if you wake him up, we'll both lose everything. Do you understand me? Yes, Mum, a small voice replied. It was the voice of a boy. Young, maybe 7 or 8 years old. I have to go clean the silver in the dining hall, Lizzie continued, her words rushed and trembling. I'll be back in 10 minutes. Please, Jamie, be good. I'm begging you. I promise, Mum. The door clicked shut. Lizzie was gone. Now it was just William and the boy. For a long moment, there was only silence. The fire crackled. The rain hammered against the glass. The old grandfather clock in the corner ticked steadily. Tick, tock, tick, tock. William kept his breathing slow and steady, but inside his mind was racing. He expected the boy to start exploring. Kids were curious. They touched things. They broke things. And poor kids, William assumed, were even worse. They wanted what they didn't have. But the boy didn't move. 5 minutes passed. William's neck was beginning to ache from holding his head at the same angle, but he refused to break character. He had to see what this child would do. Then, finally, he heard it. The soft rustle of clothing. The boy was standing up. Here we go, William thought. Here comes a little thief. He heard small footsteps approaching. Slow, hesitant, the boy was coming closer to his chair. William knew exactly what the boy was looking at. The money, 5,000 pounds, sitting right there, just inches away from William's hand. A child would understand what money was. A child would know that this money could buy toys, sweets, warm clothes, food for his mother. William braced himself. Any second now. The boy would reach out, grab the cash, and shove it into his pocket. And then William would open his eyes, catch him in the act, and throw both the boy and his mother out into the rain. Another lesson learned. Never trust anyone. The footsteps stopped. The boy was standing right beside William's chair now. William could almost feel the child's presence. He waited for the sound of paper rustling. He waited for the grab, but it never came. Instead of taking the money, something completely unexpected happened. William felt a small, cold hand gently touch his arm. The touch was so light, so careful, like a feather brushing against his skin. William fought the urge to flinch. What is this boy doing? He wondered. Is he checking if I'm dead? The boy pulled his hand back. Then William heard a soft sigh, a child's sigh, full of concern. You're cold, sir, the boy whispered. William's heart skipped a beat. What? Then he heard the sound of a zipper. The boy was taking off his jacket. What on earth is he doing? William thought, his mind spinning with confusion. And then William felt something warm and damp settle over his legs. It was a boy's jacket, a thin, cheap windbreaker, still wet from the rain outside. The boy was covering William's knees with it, like a blanket. The boy smoothed the small jacket over the old man's legs with care. Then he whispered again, so quietly that William almost didn't hear him. Mom says when someone's cold, you help them, even if they're rich. Cold is cold. William's entire body went rigid. This was not what was supposed to happen. The script had been torn up and thrown away. The boy wasn't looking at the money. He was looking at him, at William, at a person. Then William heard movement on the table. Ah, he thought bitterly. Here it is. Now, he takes the money after all. But the money didn't move. William risked opening his left eye, just a tiny crack, hidden by his eyelashes. What he saw made his breath catch in his throat. The boy, Jamie, was standing by the table. He was small and thin, with messy brown hair and clothes that were clearly second-hand. His shoes were worn through at the toes, but his face was filled with serious concentration. Jamie had noticed that the envelope was hanging dangerously close to the edge of the table. So he gently pushed it back toward the center near the lamp so it wouldn't fall. Then Jamie saw something else. A leather notebook had fallen onto the floor near William's foot. Jamie bent down, picked it up, and carefully dusted it off with his sleeve. He placed it gently on the table next to the envelope. Safe now, Jamie whispered to himself. Then the boy turned around, walked back to his corner, and sat down on the rug. He pulled his knees up to his chest and wrapped his thin arms around himself. He was shivering. He had given his only jacket to a stranger, and now he was cold. William lay there in his chair, completely frozen. Not from cold, from shock. For the first time in 20 years, William Grant didn't know what to think. He had set a trap to catch a rat, but instead he had found something pure, something innocent, something he thought no longer existed in the world. Why didn't he take it? William screamed inside his own head. They're poor. I know they're poor. His mother wears shoes with holes in them. Why didn't he take the money? Before William could process any of this, The study door burst open. Lizzie rushed in, breathless and pale with terror. She had clearly run the entire way from the dining hall. Her eyes immediately went to the corner where Jamie sat, shivering without his jacket. Then her gaze shifted to the leather chair, and she saw it. Her son's dirty, cheap jacket draped over the billionaire's expensive trousers. Her hands flew to her mouth. She thought the worst. She thought Jamie had been bothering Mr. Grant. She thought her son had done something terrible. "Jamie!" she hissed, her voice sharp with panic. She rushed to the boy and grabbed him by the arm, pulling him to his feet. "What did you do?" she demanded in a harsh whisper. "Why is your coat on him? Did you touch him? Did you touch that money?" Jamie looked up at his mother with wide, confused eyes. "No, Mum." He was shivering. "I just wanted to keep him warm. And the envelope was about to fall, so I moved it back." "Oh, God!" Lizzie cried, tears welling up in her eyes. "He's going to wake up. He's going to fire us. We're ruined, Jamie. I told you not to move. I told you." Lizzie began frantically pulling the jacket off William's legs, her hands shaking so badly she nearly knocked over the lamp. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the sleeping man, even though she thought he couldn't hear her. "I'm so sorry. Please don't wake up. Please." William felt the jacket being yanked away. He felt the terror radiating from this woman like heat from a furnace. She wasn't afraid of a monster. She was afraid of him. She was terrified of the man who had so much power over her life that even a simple act of kindness from her child felt like a crime. And in that moment, William realized something devastating. He had become the monster. It was time to end this. William let out a loud, theatrical groan and shifted in his chair. Lizzie froze instantly. She clutched Jamie to her chest and backed toward the door like a frightened animal. Her face had drained of all color. William opened his eyes slowly. He blinked a few times, pretending to adjust to the light. Then he lowered his gaze to the terrified woman and the small boy standing by the door. He put on his best angry face. He scowled, his thick gray eyebrows drawn together into a sharp line. "What is all this noise?" William growled, his voice rough and harsh. "Can't a man get some peace in his own home?" I'm so sorry, Mr. Grant," Lizzie stammered, her voice breaking. She bowed her head. "I was just cleaning. This is my son, Jamie. I had no choice, sir. The schools were closed because of the storm. I had nowhere else to take him. We're leaving right now. Please, sir, please don't fire me. I'll take him outside. He won't bother you again. I need this job, Mr. Grant. I need it." William stared at them in silence. He looked at the envelope of money sitting on the table, exactly where Jamie had carefully pushed it to safety. He looked at the small boy trembling in his mother's arms, not from the cold anymore, but from fear. Fear of him. William sat up straighter in his chair. He reached out and picked up the envelope. He tapped it against his palm slowly, deliberately. Lizzie squeezed her eyes shut, clearly expecting him to accuse him of trying to steal. "Boy," William said sharply. Jamie peeked out from behind his mother's shoulder. "Yes, sir." "Come here." Lizzie's grip on Jamie's shoulder tightened. "Sir, he didn't mean any harm." "I said come here." William's voice boomed across the room. Jamie slowly pulled away from his mother. He walked toward the leather chair with small, hesitant steps, his hands trembling at his sides. He stopped right in front of William's knees. William leaned forward until his face was just inches from the boy's. He looked deep into Jamie's eyes, searching for a lie, searching for greed, searching for the darkness he was so certain lived in every human heart. "Did you put your jacket on me?" William asked. Jamie swallowed hard. "Yes, sir." "Why?" William demanded. "I'm a stranger. I'm rich. I have an entire wardrobe full of expensive coats upstairs. Why would you give me your jacket?" Jamie looked down at his worn-out shoes. Then he looked back up at William with those clear, honest eyes. "Because you look cold, sir. And Mum says when someone's cold, you help them, even if they're rich. Cold is cold. Cold is cold. Such a simple truth. Such a pure truth." William stared at the boy for a long moment. Then he turned his gaze to Lizzie. She was holding her breath, tears streaming down her face. Wait, before we find out what happens next, I need to ask you something. If you're feeling the emotions right now, if Jamie's choice is hitting you in the heart, please take 1 second to hit that like button. It tells YouTube that stories like this matter. And if you haven't subscribed to Threads of Legacy yet, do it now. Because we share stories like this every single week. Stories that remind you why humanity is beautiful. Now, let's find out what William does next. Because what happens in the next few minutes will absolutely break your heart in the best way possible. Stay with me. What's your name, son? William asked, his voice softening just slightly. Jamie, sir. William nodded slowly. He looked at the money in his hand. Then he looked at the open door of the study. A plan was forming in his mind. The test wasn't over. In fact, it had just entered its second phase. This boy had passed the first test, the test of honesty. But William needed to know more. He needed to know if this was just a fluke or if this child truly possessed something rare, something precious. William shoved the envelope of money into his inside pocket. Then he pointed at the leather chair where he'd been sitting. You woke me up, William grunted, returning to his harsh tone. I hate being woken up. Lizzie let out a small, choked sob. We're leaving, sir, right now. No, William said sharply. We're leaving, sir, Lizzie repeated, grabbing Jamie's hand and turning toward the door. Stop. William's voice cracked like a whip. Lizzie froze. She didn't dare take another step. She turned around slowly, her entire body shaking. I didn't say you could leave, William growled. He pointed a trembling finger at the leather chair. Look at this. Lizzie looked. There was a small, dark, damp spot on the leather where Jamie's wet jacket had rested. My chair, William said, his voice dripping with fake anger. This is Italian leather. It costs 200 pounds per square foot, and now it's wet. It's ruined. I'll dry it, sir, Lizzie said desperately. I'll get a towel right now. Water stains leather. William lied. He stood up, leaning heavily on his walking stick, towering over the terrified woman. You can't just dry it. It needs professional restoration. That will cost me 500 pounds. William watched them closely. This was the second part of his test. He wanted to see if the mother would turn on the boy. He wanted to see if she would scream at Jamie for costing her money she didn't have. He wanted to see if the pressure would crack their bond. Lizzie looked at the spot on the chair. Then she looked back at William, tears pouring down her face. Mr. Grant, please, she begged. I don't have 500 pounds. I haven't even been paid yet. Please, take it from my wages. I'll work for free. Just, please don't hurt my boy. William's eyes narrowed. She was offering to work without pay. That was unusual, but he still wasn't satisfied. He looked down at Jamie. And you, William said to the boy, you caused this damage. What do you have to say for yourself? Jamie stepped forward. He wasn't crying. His small face was serious and determined. He reached into his pocket. I don't have 500 pounds, Jamie said softly, but I have this. Jamie pulled his hand out and opened his small fingers. In the center of his palm sat a tiny, battered toy car. It was red, or at least it used to be. Now the paint was chipped and faded. One of the wheels was missing entirely. It looked old and worthless. But the way Jamie held it, you would have thought he was holding a bar of gold. This is Thunder, Jamie explained, his voice quiet but steady. He's the fastest car in the world. He was my dad's before he went to heaven. Mum gave him to me after the funeral. Lizzie gasped. Jamie, no, you don't have to. It's okay, Mum, Jamie said bravely. He looked up at William. You can have Thunder to pay for the chair, sir. He's my best friend. But you're angry, and I don't want you to be angry at Mom. Jamie reached out with both hands and placed a broken toy car on the expensive oak table right next to the leather notebook. William stared at the toy. He couldn't breathe. The room felt like it was closing in on him. William looked at the thousands of pounds in his pocket. Then he looked at the three-wheeled toy car sitting on his table. This boy was offering his most precious possession, the only thing he had left of his father, to fix a mistake he'd made out of pure kindness. He was giving up everything to save his mother. William's heart which had been frozen solid for 20 years, suddenly cracked wide open. The pain was sharp, immediate, overwhelming. He realized in that moment that this boy who had nothing was richer than William would ever be. The silence in the room stretched out like a hell breath. The rain continued to hammer against the windows. The fire crackled softly in the hearth. The old clock ticked on. William picked up the toy car with trembling hands. He turned it over slowly, looking at the missing wheel, the scratched paint, the tiny dent on the roof. You... William's voice was no longer a growl. It was barely a whisper. You would give me this? For a wet chair. Yes, sir, Jamie said, his voice small but certain. Is it enough? William closed his eyes. He thought about his own children. They had never given him anything. Not once. They only took. They only asked. They only waited for him to die. Yes, William whispered, opening his eyes. They were wet with tears. Yes, Jamie. It's enough. It's more than enough. William's legs felt weak. He slumped back into his chair, the act completely abandoned. He couldn't play the villain anymore. He felt exhausted, not from age, but from the crushing weight of his own guilt. Lizzie, William said, his voice completely changed. It was no longer harsh or commanding. It was the voice of a tired, lonely old man. Sit down. Sir. Lizzie looked confused by the sudden change in his tone. I said sit down, William repeated, then softened. Please, just sit. Stop looking at me like I'm a monster. Lizzie hesitantly sat on the edge of the velvet sofa, pulling Jamie onto her lap. William looked at the toy car in his hand. He spun the remaining wheels with his thumb. I need to tell you something, William said, staring at the floor. A confession. Lizzie waited, her arms wrapped protectively around her son. The chair isn't ruined, William admitted. It's just water. It will dry in an hour, maybe less. Lizzie exhaled sharply. Oh, thank God. And William continued, looking up at them with haunted eyes. I wasn't asleep. Lizzie's eyes went wide. You weren't. No. William shook his head. I was pretending. I left that money on the table on purpose. I wanted to see if you would steal it. I wanted to catch you. I've done it before. Many times. To test people. To prove that everyone is a thief. Lizzie's face crumpled. She looked hurt. Betrayed. You were testing us? Like we're animals in a cage? Yes. William admitted, shame flooding his voice. I'm a bitter old fool, Lizzie. I thought everyone had a price. I thought everyone would steal if they had the chance. He pointed a shaking finger at Jamie. But William's voice broke. He didn't take the money. He covered me because he thought I was cold. And then he offered me his father's car. The only thing he has left of the man he loved. A tear rolled down William's weathered cheek. He didn't bother to wipe it away. I have lost my way, William whispered. I have all the money in the world, but I am the poorest man in London. You have nothing, but you've raised a king. William stood up slowly, his joints aching. He walked over to the fireplace and took a deep, shuddering breath. Then he turned back to them. The test is over, William announced, and you both passed, with honors. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the thick envelope of money. He walked over to Lizzie and held it out to her. Take this, William said. Lizzie shook her head fiercely. No, sir, I don't want your money. I just want to work honestly. I want to earn my keep. Take it, William insisted. It's not charity. It's payment for the most valuable lesson I've ever learned. Your son just taught me something I've forgotten. He taught me how to be human again. Lizzie hesitated, her eyes moving from the money to Jamie's worn-out shoes, his too small jacket still lying on the floor. Please, William said gently, buy the boy a warm coat. Buy him proper shoes. Buy yourself a bed that doesn't hurt your back. Take it. With trembling hands, Lizzie reached out and took the envelope. Thank you, Mr. Grant, she whispered. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet, William said. And for the first time in years, a genuine smile touched his lips. Because I have a business proposition. For Jamie. Jamie looked up, his eyes bright with curiosity. For me, sir? Yes, William said. He held up the little toy car. I'm going to keep Thunder. You gave him to me as payment. And a deal is a deal. Jamie's face fell slightly, but he nodded with quiet dignity. Okay, a deal's a deal. But William continued, kneeling down, a painful movement for his old knees. So he was eye level with a 7-year-old. I can't have a car with only 3 wheels. That won't do it all. I need someone to help me fix things around here. Not just cars. Other things, too. Broken things. William paused, his voice growing thick with emotion. I need someone to help me fix myself. He looked directly into Jamie's eyes. Jamie, how would you like to come here every day after school? You can sit in this study. You can do your homework by the fire. You can have tea and biscuits. And maybe, just maybe, you can teach this grumpy old man how to be kind again, how to trust again, how to love again. William's voice was steady now, filled with quiet hope. In exchange, I'll pay for your school. All of it. Primary, secondary, university. Everything. I'll make sure you have every opportunity one can give you. Deal. Jamie looked at his mother. Lizzie was crying openly now, her hands covering her mouth. She nodded through her tears. Jamie looked back at William. He smiled, a gap-toothed, beautiful, radiant smile. Deal, Jamie said. He held out his small hand. And William Grant, the billionaire who trusted no one, who had built walls around his heart for 20 years, took that small hand in his and shook it. It felt like coming home. 10 years passed. The Grant estate was no longer a dark, forbidding place. The high walls were covered in climbing roses now. The heavy curtains were always open, letting sunlight pour into every room. The gardens, once thorny and overgrown, bloomed with flowers of every color. On a bright Sunday afternoon, the study was filled with people. But this wasn't a celebration. It was a reading, the reading of the last will and testament of Mr. William Grant. William had passed away peacefully in his sleep 3 days earlier. He had died in his favorite leather chair, the same chair where everything had changed 10 years ago. He'd been 85 years old, and for the first time in decades, he died happy. The room was crowded with people, lawyers in dark suits, business associates in expensive clothes, and William's biological children, 2 sons and a daughter, sitting stiffly on the far side of the room. They looked impatient. They kept checking their watches. They whispered to each other about selling the estate and dividing the fortune. They didn't look sad. They looked hungry. Near the window stood a young man. His name was Jamie Moore, and he was 17 now. Tall, handsome, wearing a crisp suit that William had bought him for his birthday. He stood quietly, looking out at the garden where his mother, Lizzie, was cutting flowers for William's funeral. Lizzie didn't look tired anymore. She looked peaceful. She was now the director of the Grant Foundation, managing millions of pounds that were donated to charity every year. She had found her purpose, and she had found joy. The lawyer, Mr. Patterson, cleared his throat. I will now read the last will and testament of Mr. William Grant, he announced. The room fell silent. Mr. Patterson adjusted his glasses and began to read. To my children, he read from the document, I leave the trust funds that were established for you at birth. You have never visited me without asking for money, so I assume money is all you want from me. You have your millions. I hope they keep you warm at night. William's children grumbled, but they looked satisfied. They started to stand up, ready to leave. Wait, Mr. Patterson said firmly. There's more. They sat back down, confused. To the remainder of my estate, Mr. Patterson continued, including this house, my companies, my investments, my art collection, and all my personal savings, I leave everything to the one person who gave me something when I had nothing. The children turned sharply. Who? One son demanded. Where's family? I leave it all, the lawyer read clearly, to Jamie Moore. The room erupted. William's children started shouting. They pointed at Jamie with fury in their eyes. Him, they screamed. The housekeeper's son? This is insane. He tricked our father. This will is invalid. Jamie didn't move. He didn't speak. He just stood there quietly, holding something small in his hand, turning it over and over with his thumb. Mr. Patterson raised his hand for silence. Mr. Grant left a letter, he said. He wanted me to read it aloud. To all of you. He unfolded a handwritten note, and the room fell into tense silence. To my children and to the world, Mr. Patterson read. You measure wealth in pounds and property. You think I've lost my mind by giving my fortune to Jamie. But you're wrong. I'm not giving him anything. I'm repaying a debt. The lawyer's voice softened as he continued. 10 years ago, on a rainy afternoon, I was spiritually bankrupt. I was cold, lonely, empty. I had everything, but I was dying inside. I had forgotten what it meant to be human. A 7-year-old boy walked into my study. He saw me shivering. He didn't see a billionaire. He didn't see power or wealth. He saw a person, and he covered me with his only jacket. He could have stolen 5,000 pounds that day. It was right there, easy, but he didn't even look at it. Instead, he protected it. He protected me. But the real debt was paid when he offered me his most precious possession, a broken toy car that had belonged to his late father, just to save his mother from my anger. He gave me everything he had, expecting absolutely nothing in return. Mr. Patterson paused, his own voice growing emotional. That day, Jamie taught me that the poorest pocket can hold the richest heart. He saved my life, not my body, but my soul. He gave me 10 years of laughter, warmth, and family. He taught me how to love again. So I leave him my money. It's a small trade, because he gave me back everything that truly matters. The lawyer finished reading and looked at Jamie. Jamie, Mr. Patterson said gently, Mr. Grant wanted you to have this as well. He handed Jamie a small velvet box. Jamie opened it with shaking hands. Inside, resting on a cushion of white silk, was Thunder, the old toy car, but it had been restored. The paint had been touched up, the scratches buffed out, and the missing wheel had been replaced with a tiny wheel made of solid gold. William had kept it all these years. He'd treasured it, protected it. Jamie picked up the toy car, and tears streamed down his face. He didn't care about the mansion. He didn't care about the billions of pounds or the angry people shouting around him. He missed his friend. He missed the grumpy old man who had helped him with his homework, who had taught him chess, who had become like a grandfather to him. Jamie walked over to his mother, who had come in from the garden. She wrapped her arms around him and held him tight. He was a good man, Lizzie whispered. In the end, he was a truly good man. He was, Jamie replied, his voice thick with grief and gratitude. He just needed someone to see him, to really see him. William's children stormed out of the house, vowing to challenge the will in court. But they would lose. The will was ironclad, and deep down they knew they deserved nothing. Jamie walked slowly over to the leather chair, the chair where everything had begun. He placed the toy car with the golden wheel on the side table, right next to the lamp. Safe now, Jamie whispered, repeating the words he had spoken 10 years ago. Jamie grew up to be a different kind of wealthy man. He didn't build walls to keep people out. He built schools to let people in. He didn't hoard money. He used it to fix broken things. Broken schools, broken hospitals, broken lives. And every single time someone asked him how he became so successful, Jamie would smile gently, pull the battered toy car from his pocket, and say, I am by my success. I earned it with kindness. And someone believed that kindness was worth everything. Kindness is an investment that never loses value. In a world where everyone is trying to take something, the people who give are the ones who truly change everything. William Grant had all the money in the world, but he was poor until a child taught him how to love. Never underestimate the power of a small act of goodness. A jacket, a kind word, a simple sacrifice. These things can melt the coldest heart. When you give, do it without expecting anything back. And life will reward you in ways money never can. Remember, the poorest pocket can hold the richest heart. Jamie gave everything when he had nothing. What will you give right now? Give this. Thumbs up or like speech balloon a comment sharing your favorite Part Bell subscription to Threads of Legacy Mobile Phone with Thero, a share to someone who needs hope. That's it. That's all I'm asking. Because if this story can reach just one more person who's lost faith in humanity, it's worth it. Thread subscribe to Threads of Legacy. New story every week. Let's build this legacy together. See you soon. Red Heart.